Tensions remain high on the Israeli-Gaza border after the U.S. moved its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. This is the deadliest fighting that we have seen in this area in years. At least 60 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces. Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, has vowed retaliation for the deaths. Israel is facing international condemnation for its use of force against the protesters, but the Trump administration has a strong statement of support. The White House is saying Hamas is squarely responsible for the deaths and that Israel has a right to defend itself. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, distancing the decision to move the embassy from the deadly violence.
Those who suggest that the Gaza violence has anything to do with the location of the American embassy are sorely mistaken. Rather, the violence comes from those who reject the existence of the State of Israel in any location. Such a motivation, the destruction of a United Nations member state, is so illegitimate as to not be worth our time in the Security Council, other than the time it takes to denounce it. Yesterday's opening of our embassy in Jerusalem is a cause for celebration for the American people. Moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem was the right thing to do.
CNN Global Affairs correspondent Elise Labott is covering this from Jerusalem. Elise, asked whether Israel should show more restraint, the White House press secretary Raj Shah again repeated that Hamas should bear responsibility for the entire situation right now. There's this perception, certainly, that, and I'm sure Israel is thrilled with it, but from the Palestinian perspective, is that this is the U.S. picking a side.
Well, yeah, of course they picked a side, Brianna. I mean, usually in previous years, you would kind of caveat Israel has a right to defend itself, but we urge restraint on both sides. You're not even kind of hearing that caveat, use restraint. And I think what you're hearing from from this international condemnation that's coming in, you're hearing it from the other side. Those countries are saying, yes, Hamas is responsible. They are instigating it. But Israel needs to calibrate their response. They need to show restraint and questioning why they're using, live fire to go after these people. So I think it's kind of a little bit lopsided in terms of how the U.S. is viewing it. I think you're going to see, Brianna, this administration, though, pay some more attention to Gaza as, Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt seek to roll out their peace plan. There's a, recognition, I think, that unless you deal with the Gaza problem, you're not going to be able to get a peace deal. And that's why one of the reasons that kind of seems so off. So you would think that the administration would start to show a little bit more understanding for what's going on there. And I mean, I think that if President Trump can talk to Kim Jong-un, I think there are going to be a lot of people wondering why he can't talk to Hamas.
All right, Elise Labott in Jerusalem, thank you so much for that report. And as blood spilled just miles away, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner were all smiles as they ceremoniously opened the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. It was a contrast that was slammed by many and highlighted on the cover of the New York Daily News with the headline, "Daddy's Little Ghoul." A CNN op-ed summing it up like this: Ivanka's smile was undoubtedly offered to distract from the mayhem and death that any thoughtful person could have anticipated as the embassy opened and Trump abandoned America's claim to honest broker status in the Middle East. And joining me now is the man who wrote that op-ed, CNN contributor and Donald Trump biographer Michael D'Antonio. And Michael, this is your op-ed, What Ivanka's Smile Can't Hide. You clearly think that she was a poor messenger on behalf of the United States in this case. Why?
Well, I think if this had been a policy that was well thought out and seriously considered, they would have sent someone with serious diplomatic experience. Maybe Nikki Haley should have gone to represent the United States, but instead we get the president's daughter, who was appointed after a lifetime of working for her father in the real estate business, and two pastors whose record is filled with condemnations of the Jewish people. These are pastors who say that only evangelical Christians of their sort are favored by God and everyone else is damned for eternity. So for this and many other reasons, this spectacle yesterday was incredibly painful for much of the world, and all of it was done with no reciprocal exchange on behalf of the Palestinians or the peace process. President Trump just bargained away the status of Jerusalem and got nothing in return.
I have to ask you, Michael, because when I look at your op-ed, and specifically when I look at the New York Daily News cover, where there's this specific focus on Ivanka, yes, she was there, and she had this moment where she is doing the unveiling, right? It does feel like the ribbon cutting of maybe a Trump property or something sort of like that, the ribbon cutting of a new building. But Jared Kushner was there giving the substantive speech with a lot of controversial material in it. Steve Mnuchin was there representing the administration. Why the focus on Ivanka when there's clearly the role of these other prominent members of the administration?
Well, I think it's important to focus on her because her presence was really intended as a smokescreen, as it often is. You know, she is the softer side of the Trump family. She's supposed to lend a gentle air to whatever policy is being implemented, but it's really hard to accept this image making when 55 people are being killed nearby, including many children. And this is a first daughter who has advocated for children and families. It's not the first time that she's presented herself as the softer side of the president, and it rarely works, and it seems intensely hypocritical.
All right, Michael D'Antonio, thank you so much for that and sharing your column with us. Next, President Trump wants